Okay, hello, ladies and gentlemen, Forrest over here, and welcome back to another reading live stream, the very first reading live stream of 2025. And boy, I am ready to get things started once again with the reading streams. It's been a while, I know. It's been about a month or two. There was like October, November since I read this book or any book. Well, since I've read this book in particular. And so, we're going to be continuing Stephen King's Night Shift book that I've started some time ago, and hopefully we will end this book by the end of the month, if not in a few weeks' time, before the month is over, even near the end of it. So for those of you that are just showing up for, if this is your first time doing this reading live stream, I will say this is one of those books where you don't have to watch it from the very beginning. You could watch it from any part that you want to watch it on, because at this point I'm reading two stories per part to kind of even it out a bit since I am getting close to the end of this book. But yeah. So the stories that I'll be reading this in this part today are The Lawnmower Man and Quitters Incorporated. I don't know how long these stories will be, or how long this stream will be, because of how long those stories each are. I know that The Lawnmower Man is a short story, and that Quitters Inc. is a longer short story, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But for now, let's go ahead and get started with The Lawnmower Man by Stephen King in the book Night Shift. Sorry. The Lawnmower Man. Actually, let me lower this down a bit. There you go. In previous years, Harold Parkett had always taken pride in his lawn. He had owned a large silver lawn boy and paid the boy down the block $5 per cutting to push it. In those days, Harold Parkett had followed the Boston Red Sox on the radio with a beer in his hand and the knowledge that God was in his heaven and all was right with the world, including his lawn. But last year, in mid-October, fate had played Harold Parkett a nasty trick. While the boy was mowing the grass for the last time of the season, the Custom Myers' dog had chased the Smith's cat under the mower. Harold's daughter had thrown up half a quart of cherry Kool-Aid into the lap of her new jumper, and his wife had had nightmares for a week afterward. Although she had arrived after the fact, she had arrived in time to see Harold and the green-faced boy cleaning the blades. Their daughter and Mrs. Smith stood over them, weeping, although Alicia had taken time enough to change her jumper for a pair of blue jeans and one of those disgusting skimpy sweaters. She had a crush on the boy who mowed the lawn. After a week of listening to his wife moan and gobble in the next bed, Harold decided to get rid of the mower. He didn't really need a mower anyway, he supposed. He had hired a boy this year. Next year he would just hire a boy and a mower. And maybe Carla would stop moaning in her sleep. He might even get laid again. So he took the silver lawn boy down to Phil's Sonoco, and he and Phil dickered over it. Harold came away with a brand new Kelly Blackwall tire and a tankful of high test, and Phil put the silver lawn boy out on one of the pump islands with a hand-lettered for sale sign on it. And this year, Harold just kept putting off the necessary hiring. When he finally got around to calling last year's boy, his mother told him Frank had gone to the state university. Harold shook his head in wonder and went to the refrigerator to get a beer. Time certainly flew, didn't it? Oh, God, my God, yes. He put off hiring a new boy as first May, and then June first slipped past him, and the Red Sox continued to wallow in fourth place. He sat on the back porch on... Wait. Hey Forrest, did you forget to turn on your mic? Why, yes, I did. I completely forgot to turn on my mic. Hold on a second. Let's start over again. Let's start over again, but this time let's just cut the intro short. Alright. So here we are, reading Stephen King's Stephen King's Night Shift, doing the two stories, Lawnmower Man and Night Shift, completely forgetting I had to turn my mic on because I'm an idiot, but whatever. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with the story because we're already 5 minutes into the stream with me fucking up. The whole 5 minutes without realizing. Hey, Forrest, did you, forget about a little something something that you're supposed to turn on before you said something? Oh, yes. Yes, I did. Anyway, let's start over. The Lawnmower Man. In previous years, Harold Partet had always taken pride in his lawn. He had owned a large silver lawn boy and paid the boy down the block $5 per cutting to push it. In those days, Harold Partet had followed the Boston Red Sox on the radio with a beer in his hand and the knowledge that God was in his heaven and all was right with the world, including his lawn. But last year in mid-October, fate had played Harold Partet a nasty trick. While the boy was mowing the grass for the last time of the season, the Caston Myers' dog had chased the Smith's cat under the mower. Harold's daughter had thrown up half a quart of cherry Kool-Aid into the lap of her new jumper, and his wife had nightmares for a week afterward. Although she had arrived after the fact, she had arrived in time to see Harold and the green-faced boy cleaning the blades. Their daughter and Mrs. Smith stood over them, weeping, although Alicia had taken time enough to change their jumper for a pair of blue jeans and one of those disgusting skimpy sweaters. She had a crush on the boy who mowed the lawn. After a week of listening to his wife moan and gobble in the next bed, Harold decided to get rid of the mower. He didn't really need a new mower anyway, he supposed. He had hired a boy this year. Next year he would just hire a boy and a mower. And maybe Carla would stop moaning in her sleep. He might even get laid again. So he took the silver lawn boy down to Phil's Sonoco, and he and Phil dickered over it. Harold came away with a brand new Kelly Blackwall tire and a tank full of high test, and Phil put the silver lawn boy out on one of the pump islands with the hand-lettered for sale sign on it. And this year Harold just kept putting off the necessary hiring. When he finally got around to calling last year's boy, his mother told him Frank had gone to the state university. Harold shook his head in wonder and went to the refrigerator to get a beer. Time certainly flew, didn't it? My God, yes. He put off hiring a new boy as first May and then June slipped past him, and the Red Sox continued to wallow in fourth place. He sat on the back porch on the weekends and watched gloomily as the never-ending progression of young boys he had never seen before popped out to mutter a quick hello before taking his buxom daughter off to the local passion pit. And the grass thrived and grew in a marvelous way. It was a good summer for grass. 3 days of shine followed by one of gentle rain, almost like clockwork. By mid-July, the lawn looked more like a meadow than a suburbanite's backyard, and Jack Kastenmeyer had begun to make all sorts of extremely unfunny jokes, most of which concerned the price of hay and alfalfa. And Don Smith's 4-year-old daughter, Jenny, had taken to hiding in it when there was oatmeal for breakfast or spinach for supper. One day in late July, Harold went out onto the patio during the seventh-inning stretch and saw a woodchuck sitting perkily on the overgrown back wall. The time has come, he decided. He flicked off the radio, picked up the paper, and turned to the classifieds. And halfway down the part-time column, he found this. Lawns mowed, reasonable, 776-239-2390. Harold called the number, expecting a vacuuming housewife who would yell outside for her son. Instead, a briskly professional voice said, Pastoral Greenery and Outdoor Services. How may we help you? Cautiously, Harold told the voice how pastoral greenery could help him. Had it come to this, then? Were lawn cutters starting their own businesses and hitting office help and hiring office help? He asked the voice about rates, and the voice quoted him a reasonable figure. Harold hung up with a lingering feeling of unease and went back to the porch. He sat down, turned on the radio, and stared out over his glandular lawn at the Saturday clouds moving slowly across the Saturday sky. Carla and Alicia were at his mother-in-law's, and the house was his. It would be a pleasant surprise for them if the boy who was coming to cut the lawn finished before they came back. He cracked a beer and sighed as Dick Drago was touched for a double and then hit a batter. A little breeze shuffled across the screened-in porch. Crickets hummed softly in the long grass. Harold grunted something unkind about Dick Drago and then dozed off. He was jarred awake a half-hour later by the doorbell. He knocked over his beer, getting up to answer it. A man in grass-stained denim overalls stood on the front stoop, chewing a toothpick. He was fat. The curve of his belly pushed his faded blue overall out to a point where Harold half suspected he had swallowed a basketball. Yes? Harold Parkett asked, still half asleep. Good morning. Yes? The man grinned, rolled his toothpick from one corner of his mouth to the other, tugged at the seat of his overalls, and then pushed his green baseball cap up a notch on his forehead. There was a smear of fresh engine oil on the bill of his cap. And there he was, smiling of grass, earth, and oil, grinning at Harold Parkett. Fast all sent me, buddy, he said jovially, scratching his crotch. You called, right? Right, buddy? He grinned on endlessly. Oh, the lawn. You? Harold stared stupidly. Yep, me, the lawnmower man bellowed. Fresh laughter into Harold's sleepy puffy face. Harold stood helplessly aside, and the lawnmower man tromped on ahead of him, down the hall, through the living room and kitchen, and onto the back porch. Now Harold had a place to man, and everything was all right. He hadn't seen the type before, working for the sanitation department and the highway repair crews out on the turnpike. Always with a spare minute to lean on their shovels and smoke Lucky Strikes or Camels, looking at you as if they were the salt of the earth, able to hit you for $5 or sleep with your wife any time they wanted to. Harold had always been slightly afraid of men like this. They were always tanned dark brown. There were always nets of wrinkles around their eyes, and they always knew what to do. The back lawn's the real chore, he told the man, unconsciously deepening his voice. It's square and there are no obstructions, but it's pretty well grown up. His voice faltered back into its normal register, and he found himself apologizing. I'm afraid I've let it go. No sweat, buddy. No strain. Great, great, great. The lawnmower man grinned at him, with 1,000 traveling salesman jokes in his eyes. The taller the better. Healthy soil, that's what you got there, by Circe. That's what I always say. By Circe? The lawnmower man cocked his head at the radio. Jastrzemski had just struck out. Red Sox fan? I'm a Yankees man myself. He clunked back into the house and down the front hall. Harold watched him bitterly. He sat back down and looked accusingly for a moment at the puddle of beer under the table with the overturned Coors can in the middle of it. He thought of getting the mop from the kitchen and decided it would keep. No sweat, no strain. He opened his paper to find the financial section and cast a judicious eye at the closing stock quotations. As a good Republican, he considered the Wall Street executives behind the column type to be at least minor demigods by Cersei? And he wished many times that he could better understand the word, as handed down from the mount not on stone tablets, but in such enigmatic abbreviations as percent in PCT and KDK and 3.28 up 2/3. He had once bought a judicious 3 shares in a company called Midwest Bison Burgers Incorporated that had gone broke in 1968. He had lost his entire $75 investment. Now, he understood, bison burgers were quite the coming thing, the wave of the future. He had discussed this often with Sonny, the bartender down at the Goldfish Bowl. Sonny told Harold his trouble was that he was 5 years ahead of his time, and he should. A sudden racketing roar startled him out of the new doze he had just been slipping into. Harold jumped to his feet, knocking his chair over and staring around wildly. "That's a lawnmower?" Harold Parkett asked the kitchen. My God, that's a lawnmower? He rushed through the house and stared out the front door. There was nothing out there but a battered green van with the words Pastoral Greenery Incorporated painted on the side. The roaring sound was back now. Harold rushed through his house again, burst onto the back porch, and stood frozen. It was obscene. It was travesty. It was a travesty. The aged red power mower the fat man had brought in his van was running on its own. No one was pushing it. In fact, no one was within 5 feet of it. It was running at a fever pitch, tearing through the unfortunate grass of Harold Parkett's back lawn like an avenging red devil straight from hell. It screamed and bellowed and farted oily blue smoke in a crazed kind of mechanical madness that made Harold feel ill with terror. The overripe smell of cut grass hung in the air like sour wine. But the lawnmower man was the true obscenity. Take a wild guess what he may have done before I read this. I'll take a drink while you guys think about that. And it's probably as bad as you think it is. Alright, let's see what's going on here. The lawnmower man had removed his clothes, every stitch. They were folded neatly in the empty bird bath that was at the center of the back lawn. Naked and grass-stained, he was crawling along about 5 feet behind the mower, eating the cut grass. Green juice ran down his chin and dripped onto his pendulous belly. And every time the lawnmower whirled around a corner, he rose and did an odd skipping jump before prostrating himself again. "Stop!" Harold shouted. Harold Parkett screamed, "Stop that!" But the lawnmower man took no notice, and his screaming scarlet familiar never slowed. If anything, it seemed to speed up. Its nicked steel grill seemed to grin swearily at Harold as it raved by. Then Harold saw the mole. It must have been hiding in stunned terror just ahead of the mower, in the swath of grass about to be slaughtered. It bolted across the cut band of lawn towards safety under the porch, a panicky brown streak. The lawnmower swerved. Blatting and howling, it roared over the mole and spat it out in a string of fur and entrails that reminded Harold of the smith's cat. The mole destroyed. The lawnmower rushed back to the main job. The lawnmower man crawled rapidly by, eating grass. Harold stood paralyzed with horror, stocks, spawns, and bison burgers completely forgotten. He could actually see that huge pendulous belly expanding. The lawnmower man swerved and ate the mole. That was when Harold Parkett leaned out of the screen door and vomited into the zinnias. The world went gray, and suddenly he realized he was fainting. Had fainted. He collapsed backward onto the porch and closed his eyes. There's a lot of animal cruelty happening in this story. Well, really, two scenes of animal cruelty. The first one being the cat, which was an accident. And then the second one being this mole that we just read about. And I think that one was on purpose. From the lawnmower itself. Like, the lawnmower itself is like, I don't give a fuck who's in my way. If you're in my way, I'm running your ass over. Don't say I didn't warn you. Even though it obviously can't warn anybody. It just wants to do its damn job however it does it. But still, that is messed up. That's twice we've had an animal death. That's two animal deaths in a single story. Basically, if you're an animal lover, don't read this one. I'm being serious. Don't read this story if you're an animal. Don't listen to this story if you're an animal lover. At this rate, we only got like 3 page turns left until we go to the next story, the second story of this part. Someone was shaking him. Carla was shaking him. He hadn't done the dishes or emptied the garbage. And Carla was going to be very angry, but that was all right. As long as she was waking him up, taking him out of the horrible dream he had been having, back into the normal world, nice normal Carla, with her playtex lining girdle and her buck teeth. Buck teeth, yes. But not Carla's buck teeth. Carla had weak-looking chipmunk buck teeth. But these teeth were hairy. Green hair was growing on these buck teeth. It almost looked like grass? Oh my god, Harold said. You fainted, buddy, right? Huh? The lawnmower man was bending over him, grinning with his hairy teeth. His lips and chin were hairy too. Everything was hairy. And green. The yard stank of grass and gas and too sudden silence. Harold bolted up to a sitting position and stared at the dead mower. All the grass had been neatly cut, and there would be no need to rake this job. Harold observed sickly. If the lawnmower man had missed a single cut blade, he couldn't see it. He squinted obliquely at the lawnmower man and winced. He was still naked, still fat, still terrifying. Green trickles ran from the corners of his mouth. What is this? Harold begged. The man waved an arm, beat it benignly at the lawn. This? Well, it's a new thing the boss has been trying. It works out real good, buddy. We're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. We keep getting along toward the final stage, and we're making money to support our other operations to boot. See what I mean? Of course, every now and then, we rush into a customer who doesn't understand. Say we've got no respect for efficiency, right? But the boss is always agreeable to his sacrifice. Sort of keeps the wheels greased, if you catch me. Harold said nothing. One word knelled over and over in his mind, and that word was sacrifice. In his mind's eye, he saw the mole spewed out from under the battered red mower. He got up slowly, like a palsied old man. Of course, he said. It could only come up with a line from one of Alicia's folk rock records. God bless the grass. The lawnmower man slapped one summer apple-colored thigh. That's pretty good, buddy. In fact, that's damn good. I can see you got the right spirit. Okay, if I write that down when I get back to the office, might mean a promotion. Certainly, Harold said, retreating toward the back door and striving to keep his mounting smile in place. You go right ahead and finish. I think I'll take a little nap. Sure, buddy, the lawnmower man said, getting ponderously to his feet. Harold noticed the unusually deep split between the first and second toes, almost as if the feet were, well, cloven. It hits everybody kinda hard at first, the lawnmower man said. You'll get used to it. He eyed Harold's portly figure shrewdly. In fact, you might even want to give it a whirl yourself. The boss has already gotten an eye out for the new talent. The boss, Harold repeated faintly. The lawnmower man paused at the bottom of the steps and gazed tolerantly up at Harold Parkett. Well, say, buddy, I figured you might have guessed. I'll blast the grass and all. Harold shook his head carefully and the lawnmower man laughed. Pan! Pan's the boss! And he did a half hop, half shuffle in the newly cut grass, and the lawnmower screamed into life and began to trundle around the house. The neighbors, Harold began, but the lawnmower man only waved cheerily and disappeared. Out front, the lawnmower blatted and howled. Harold Parkett refused to look, as if by refusing he could deny the grotesque spectacle at the Canton Myers and Smiths, wretched Democrats both, were probably drinking in what with horrified but no doubt righteously I told you so eyes. Instead of looking, Harold went to the telephone, snatched it up, and dialed police headquarters from the emergency deal pasted on the phone's handset. Sergeant Hall, the voice at the other end said. Harold stuck a finger in his free ear and said, My name is Harold Parkett. My address is 1421 East Endicott Street. I'd like to report... What? What would he like to report? A man is in the process of raping and murdering my lawn, and he works for a fellow named Pan and has cloven feet? Yes, Mr. Parkett? Inspiration struck. I'd like to report a case of indecent exposure. Indecent exposure, Sergeant Hall repeated. Yes, there's a man mowing my lawn. He's in the, altogether. You mean he's naked? Sergeant Hall asked, politely incredulous. Naked, Harold agreed, holding tightly to the frayed end of his sanity. Nude, unclothed, bare-assed, on my front lawn. Can we get somebody the hell out over here? That address was 1421 West Endicott? Sergeant Hall asked amusedly. East! Harold yelled. For God's sake! And you say he's definitely naked? You're able to observe his, genitals and so on? Harold tried to speak and could only gargle. The sound of the insane lawnmower seemed to be growing louder and louder, drowning out everything in the universe. He felt his gorge rise. Can you speak up? Sergeant Hall buzzed. There's an awfully noisy commotion there at your end. The front door crashed open. Uh-oh. Oh, shit. We're reading a horror story. We're reading a Stephen King horror story. What do you think just happened to crash through that damn front door? And what do you think is going to happen next? Harold looked around and saw the lawnmower man's mechanized... I don't know what that was, but okay then. Harold looked around and saw the lawnmower man's mechanized familiar advancing through the door. Behind it came the lawnmower man himself, still quite naked. With something approaching true insanity, Harold saw the man's pubic hair was a rich fertile green. He was twirling his baseball cap in one finger. That was a mistake, buddy, the lawnmower man said reproachfully. You should have stuck with God bless the grass. Hello? Hello, Mr. Parquet? The telephone dropped from Harold's nerveless fingers as the lawnmower began to advance on him, cutting through the nap of Carla's new mohawk rug and spitting out brown hunks of fiber as it came. Harold stared at it with a kind of bird and snake fascination until it reached the coffee table. When the mower shunted it aside, shearing one leg into sawdust and splinters as it did so, he climbed over the back of his chair and began to retreat toward the kitchen, dragging the chair in front of him. That won't do any good, buddy, the lawnmower said kindly. Have to be messy too. Now if you was just to show me where you keep your sharpest butcher knife, we can get the sacrifice business out of the way, real painless. I think the bird bath would do. And then Harold shoved the chair at the lawnmower, which had been craftily flanking him while the naked man drew his attention and bolted through the doorway. The lawnmower roared around the chair, jetting out exhaust, and as Harold smashed open the porch screen door and leaped down the steps, he heard it, smelled it, felt it, right at his heels. Excuse me. The lawnmower roared off the top step like a skier going off a jump. Harold sprinted across his newly cut back lawn, but there had been too many beers, too many afternoon naps. He could sense it nearing him, then on his heels, and then he looked over his shoulder and tripped over his own feet. The last thing Harold Parquet saw was the grinning grill of the charging lawnmower, rocking back to reveal its flashing, green-stained blades, and above it the fat face of the lawnmower man, shaking his head in good-natured reproof. Hell of a thing, Lieutenant Goodwin said, as the last of the photographs were taken. He nodded to the two men in white, and they trundled their basket across the lawn. He reported some naked guy in his lawn not 2 hours ago. Is that so? Patrolman Cooley asked. Yeah, one of the neighbors called in too. Guy named Kastenmeyer. He thought it was Parquet himself. Maybe it was, Cooley. Maybe it was. Sir? Crazy with the heat, Lieutenant Goodwin said gravely and tapped his temple. Schizo-fucking-frenia. Yes, sir, Cooley said respectfully. Where's the rest of 'em? One of the white coats asked. The bird bath, Goodwin said. He looked profoundly up at the sky. Did you say the bird bath? The white coat asked. Indeed I did, Lieutenant Goodwin agreed. Patrolman Cooley looked at the bird bath and suddenly lost most of his tan. Sex maniac, Lieutenant Goodwin said. Must have been. Prints? Cooley asked thickly. You might as well ask for footprints, Goodwin said. He gestured at the newly cut grass. Patrolman Cooley made a strangled noise in his throat. Lieutenant Goodwin stuffed his hands into his pockets and rocked back on his heels. The world, he said gravely, is full of nuts. Never forget that, Cooley. Schizos. Lab boys say somebody chased Parquet through his own living room with a lawnmower. Can you imagine that? No, sir, Cooley said. Goodwin looked out over Harold Parquet's neatly manicured lawn. Well, like the man said when he saw the black-haired Swede, it surely is a Norse of a different color. Goodwin strolled around the house and Cooley followed him. Behind them, the scent of newly mowed grass hung pleasantly in the air. Hello, Ben. How you doing tonight? And yes, that was the Lawnmower Man. Just finished it, as a matter of fact. Yes. Children of the Corn is in there too. Yeah, I know. Actually, I believe. Yeah, it'll be on the next part. Because I'm doing 2 stories per part now. You're listening to Jerusalem. I grew up listening to Jerusalem. Uh, yeah, I have read. I too have been a fan of Stephen King's work. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to collect as many of those as possible. And I know that there was one audio story that my workplace has. It's the audio book of The Girl Who Loved something. I can't remember I know it was The Girl Who Loved Tommy something or something. I can't remember what it was. Let's see. How much does that come? Oh, this? It actually cost $20. Like $20, $30 at that. Yeah. That's how much it cost me. And I like it so much. I remember doing a test stream for this, and uh, people actually liked it. And I really just bought this microphone here because so many, well, not everybody, not so many, but some people in particular, one person that I could think of at the top of my head was saying that I should get a microphone for this kind of book to make it more clear. And so that's what I did. I bought this microphone. It was on sale at the time, about 20% off, I think it was. So I'd say it's about $20, $30, depending on whether you're getting the single pack like I did or a 2-pack, which I didn't do because, let's be honest here, I wouldn't really have anybody to do interviews or anything of that sort with. Excuse me. So I didn't really go for the 2-pack because I'm not really in the kind of house that would be an ideal fit for anything of that nature. But yeah, it's a really good microphone. I very much enjoyed it. I very much liked it. Although I kind of forgot to turn it on when I first started live streaming this reading stream because it has been a while since I last used this. So, yeah. Unless there are any other questions or comments to be said, I'm going to get started with the second book of the night. Second story of the night. Quitters Incorporated. Without further ado, let's begin. Morrison was waiting for someone who was hung up in the air traffic jam over Kennedy International when he saw a familiar face at the end of the bar and walked down. Jimmy? Jimmy McCann? It was. A little heavier than when Morrison had seen him at the Atlanta exhibition the year before, but otherwise he looked awesomely fit. In college, he had been a thin, pallid chain smoker buried behind huge horn-rimmed glasses. He had apparently switched to contact lenses. Langoliers is my favorite. Oh, I actually have the movie of the Langoliers. I was wanting to watch it for Halloween in October, but because of how I was doing that whole time schedule with all that, I wasn't able to, so I'm saving that for next year. Either that or I buy the book and then I watch the movie like I do with any books that were adapted into movies that I'm reading. Yeah. Well, with the exception of Jurassic Park, because I'm going to be rereading that book because I got The Lost World in this pile of books behind me. So I'm going to have both of them books there to read. But I've already reacted to the movie, and I think it's still up, if my memory is serving me correctly. That watch along stream for that one. Yeah, you look great. He extended his hand and they shook. So do you, McCann said, but Morrison knew it was a lie. He had been overworking, overeating, and smoking too much. What are you drinking? Bourbon and bitters, Morrison said. He looked he hooked his feet around a bar stool and lighted a cigarette. Meeting someone, Johnny? No, going to Miami for a conference. A heavy client. Bill's $6 million. I'm supposed to hold his hand because we lost out on a big special next spring. Are you still with Kramer and Barton? Executive Veep now. Fantastic! Congratulations! When did all this happen? He tried to tell himself that the little worm of jealousy in his stomach was just acid indigestion. He pulled out a roll of antacid pills and crunched one in his mouth. Last August, something happened that changed my life. He looked speculatively at Morrison and sipped his drink. You might be interested. My God, Morrison thought with an inner wince. Jimmy McCann's got religion. Sure, he said, and gulped at his drink when it came. I wasn't in very good shape, McCann said. Personal problems with Sharon. My dad died, heart attack, and I developed this hacking cough. Bobby Kramer dropped by my office one day and gave me a fatherly little pep talk. Do you remember what those are like? Yeah, he had worked at Kramer and Barton for 18 months before joining the Morton agency. Get your butt in gear and get your butt out. McCann laughed. You know it. Well, to put the capper on it, the doc told me I had an incipient ulcer. He told me to quit smoking. McCann grimaced. Might as well tell me to quit breathing. Morrison nodded in perfect understanding. Non-smokers could afford to be smug. He looked at his own cigarette with distaste and stubbed it out, knowing he would be lighting another in 5 minutes. Did you quit? He asked. Yes, I did. At first, I didn't think I'd be able to. I was cheating like hell. Then I met a guy who told me about an outfit over at 46th Street. Specialists. I said, what do I have to lose, and went over. I haven't smoked since. Morrison's eyes widened. What do they do? Fill you full of some drug? No. He had taken out his wallet and was rummaging through it. Here it is. I knew I had one kicking around. He laid a plain white business card on the bar between them. Quitters Incorporated. Stop going up in smoke. 237 East 46th Street. Treatments by appointment. Keep it if you want, McCann said. They'll cure you. Guaranteed. How? I can't tell you, McCann said. Huh? Why not? It's part of the contract they make you sign. Anyway, they tell you how it works when they interview you. You signed a contract? McCann nodded. And on the basis of that, yep. He smiled at Morrison, who thought, well, it's happened. Jim McCann has joined the smug bastards. Why the great secrecy if this outfit is so fantastic? How come I've never seen any spots on TV, billboards, magazines ads? They get all the clients they can handle by word of mouth. You're an advertising man, Jimmy. You can't believe that. I do, McCann said. They have a 98% cure rate. Wait a second, Morrison said. He motioned for another drink and lit a cigarette. Do these guys strap you down and make you smoke until you throw up? No. Give you something that you get sick every time you light? No, it's nothing like that. Go and see for yourself. He gestured at Morrison's cigarette. You don't really like that, do you? No, but Stopping really changed things for me, McCann said. I don't suppose it's the same for everyone, but with me it was just like dominoes falling over. I felt better, and my relationship with Sharon improved. I had more energy, and my job performance picked up. Look, you've got my curiosity aroused. Can't you just... I'm sorry, Dick. I really can't talk about it. His voice was firm. Did you put on any weight? For a moment he thought Jimmy McCann looked almost grim. Yes, a little too much, in fact. But I took it off again. I'm about right now. I was skinny before. Flight 206 now boarding gate 9, the loudspeaker announced. That's me, McCann said, getting up. He tossed a 5 on the bar. Have another if you like. And think about what I said, Dick. Really. And then he was gone, making his way through the crowd to the escalators. Morrison picked up the card, looked at it thoughtfully, then tucked it away in his wallet and forgot it. Excuse me. The card fell out of his wallet and onto another bar a month later. He had left the office early and had come here to drink that afternoon anyway. Things had not been going so well at the Morton agency. In fact, things were bloody horrible. He gave Henry a 10 to pay for his drink, then picked up the small card and reread it. 237 East 46th Street was only 2 blocks over. It was a cool, sunny October day outside, and maybe just for chuckles. When Henry brought his change, he finished his drink and then went for a walk. Quitters Incorporated was in a new building where the monthly rent on office space was probably close to Morrison's yearly salary. From the directory in the lobby, it looked to him like their offices took up one whole floor, and that spelled money. Lots of it. He took the elevator up and stepped off into a hushly carpeted foyer, and from there into a gracefully appointed reception room with a wide window that looked out on the scurrying bugs below. 3 men and 1 woman sat in the chairs along the walls, reading magazines. Business types, all of them. Morrison went to the desk. A friend gave me this, he said, passing the card to the receptionist. I guess you'd say he's an alumnus. She smiled and rolled a form into her typewriter. What is your name, sir? Richard Morrison. Clack, clackety, clack. But very muted clacks. The typewriter was an IBM. Your address? 29 Maple Lane, Clinton, New York. Married? Yes. Children? 1. He thought of Alvin and frowned slightly. 1 was the wrong word. A half might be better. His son was mentally retarded and lived at a special school in New Jersey. Before we continue, please note that this story was written at a time when words like this were when lingo like this were used. So don't go crazy on me for reading these words, okay? Okay. I'm just saying, for contextual purposes. Do not do that. Where's my controller? There it is. I'm just saying that little disclaimer before people go crazy. Because I know how the internet can be at times. Not everybody is like that. But some people just get easily offended over nothing. Who recommended us to you, Mr. Morrison? An old school friend, James McCann. Very good. Will you have a seat? It's been a very busy day. All right. He sat between the woman, who was wearing a severe blue suit, and a young executive type wearing a herringbone jacket and modish sideburns. He took out his pack of cigarettes, looked around, and saw there were no ashtrays. He put the pack away again. That was all right. He would see this little game through and then light up while he was leaving. He might even tap some ashes on them on their maroon shag rug if they made him wait long enough. He picked up a copy of Time and began to leaf through it. He was called a quarter of an hour later, that'd be 15 minutes, after the woman in the blue suit. His nicotine center was speaking quite loudly now. A man who had come in after him took out a cigarette case, snapped it open, saw there was no ashtrays, and put it away. Looking a little guilty, Morrison thought. It made him feel better. At last the receptionist gave him a sunny smile and said, "Go right in, Mr. Morrison." Morrison walked through the door beyond her desk and found himself in an indirectly lit hallway. A heavy-set man with white hair that looked phony shook his hand, smiled affably, and said, "Follow me, Mr. Morrison." He led Morrison past a number of closed, unmarked doors, and then opened one of them about halfway down the hall with a key. Beyond the door was an austere little room walled with drilled white cork panels. The only furnishings were a desk with a chair on either side. There was what happened to be a small oblong window in the wall behind the desk, but it was covered with a short green curtain. There was a picture on the wall to Morrison's left, a tall man with iron gray hair. He was holding a sheet of paper in one hand. He looked vaguely familiar. "I'm Vic Donati," the heavy-set man said. "If you decide to go ahead with our program, I'll be in charge of your case." "Pleased to know you," Morrison said. He wanted a cigarette very badly. "Have a seat." Donati put the receptionist's form on the desk, and then drew another form from the desk drawer. He looked directly into Morrison's eyes. "Do you want to quit smoking?" Morrison cleared his throat, crossed his legs, and tried to think of a way to equivocate. He couldn't. "Yes," he said. "Will you sign this?" He gave Morrison the form. He scanned it quickly. The undersigned agrees not to divulge the methods or techniques or etc., etc. "Sure," he said, and Donati put a pen in his hand. He scratched his name, and Donati signed below it. A moment later, the paper disappeared back into the desk drawer. He thought ironically, "I've taken the pledge." He had taken it before. Once it had lasted for 2 whole days. "Good," Donatelli said. "We don't bother with propaganda here, Mr. Morrison. Questions of health or expense or social grace. We have no interest in why you want to stop smoking. We are pragmatists." "Good," Morrison said blankly. "We employ no drugs. We employ no Dale Carnegie people to sermonize you. We recommend no special diet, and we accept no payment until you have stopped smoking for 1 year." "My God," Morrison said. "Mr. McLean didn't tell you that?" "No." "How is Mr. McLean, by the way? Is he well?" "He's fine." "Wonderful. Excellent. Now, just a few questions, Mr. Morrison. These are somewhat personal, but I assure you that your answers will be held in strictest confidence." "Yes?" Morrison asked non-committally. Made some friends please keep reading. "Hello, Von Beck. How you doing tonight? And thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that." "What is your wife's name?" Lucinda Morris. Her maiden name was Ramsey. Do you love her? Morrison looked up sharply, but Donati was looking at him blandly. Yes, of course, he said. Have you ever had any marital problems? A separation, perhaps? What does that got to do with kicking the habit? Morrison asked. He sounded a little angrier than he had intended, but he wanted, hell, he needed a cigarette. A great deal, Donati said. Just bear with me. No, nothing like that. Although things have been a little tense just lately. You just have one child? Yes, Alvin. He's in a private school. And which school is it? That, Morrison grimly, I'm not going to tell you. All right, Donati said agreeably. He smiled disarmingly at Morrison. All your questions will be answered tomorrow at your first treatment. How nice, Morrison said and stood. One final question, Donati said. You haven't had a cigarette for over an hour. How do you feel? Fine, Morrison lied. Just fine. Good for you, Donati exclaimed. He stepped around the desk and opened the door. Enjoy them tonight. After tomorrow, you'll never smoke again. Is that right? Mr. Morrison, Donati said it solemnly. We guarantee it. He was sitting in the outer office of Quitters Incorporated the next day, promptly at 3. He had spent most of the day swinging between skipping the appointment the receptionist had made for him on the way out and going in a spirit of bullish cooperation. Throw your best pitch at me, Buster. In the end, something Jimmy McCann had said convinced him to keep the appointment. It changed my whole life. God knew his own life could do with some changing. And then there was his own curiosity. Before going up in the elevator, he smoked a cigarette down to the filter. Too damn bad if it's the last one, he thought. It tasted horrible. The wait in the outer office was shorter this time. When the receptionist told him to go in, Donati was waiting. He offered his hand and smiled, and to Morrison, the smile looked almost predatory. He began to feel a little tense, and that made him want a cigarette. Go with me, Donati said, and led the way down to the small room. He sat behind the desk again, and Morrison took the other chair. I'm very glad you came, Donati said. A great many prospective clients never show up again after the initial interview. They discover they don't want to quit as badly as they thought. It's going to be a pleasure to work with you on this. When does the treatment start? Hypnosis, he was thinking. It must be hypnosis. Oh, it already has. It started when we shook hands in the hall. Do you have your cigarettes with you, Mr. Morrison? Yes. May I have them, please? Shrugging, Morrison handed Donati his pack. There were only 2 or 3 left in it anyway. Donati put the pack on the desk. Then, smiling into Morrison's eyes, he curled his right hand into a fist and began to hammer it down on the pack of cigarettes, which twisted and flattened. A broken cigarette end flew out. Tobacco crumbs spilled. The sound of Donati's fist was very loud in the closed room. The smile remained on his face in spite of the force of the blows, and Morrison was chilled by it. Probably just the effect they want to inspire, he thought. At last, Donati ceased pounding. He picked up the pack, a twisted and buttered ruin. You wouldn't believe the pleasure that gave me, he said, and dropped the pack into the wastebasket. Even after 3 years in the business, it still pleases me. I'm pretty sure we could tell that based on how the smile on your face was described just a few minutes ago. But okay. As a treatment, it leaves something to be desired, Morrison said mildly. There's a newsstand in the lobby of this very building, and they sell all brands. As you say, Donati said. He folded his hands. Your son, Alvin Dawes Morrison, is in the Patterson School for Handicapped Children. Born with cranial brain damage. Tested IQ of 46. Not quite the not quite the educable retarded category. Your wife, how did you know that out? How did you find that out? Morrison barked. He was startled and angry. You got no goddamn right going to go poke around my... We know a lot about you, Donati said smoothly. But, as I said, it will all be held in the strictest confidence. I'm getting out of here, Morrison said thinly. He stood up. Stay a bit longer. Morrison looked at him closely. Donati wasn't upset. In fact, he looked a little amused. The face of a man who had seen this reaction scores of times, maybe hundreds. All right, but it better be good. Oh, it is. Donati leaned back. I told you we were pragmatists here. As pragmatists, we have to start by realizing how difficult it is to cure an addiction to tobacco. The relapse rate is almost 85%. The relapse rate for heroin addiction for heroin addicts is lower than that. It is an extraordinary problem. Extraordinary. Morrison glanced into the wastebasket. One of the cigarettes, although twisted, still looked smokable. Donati laughed good-naturedly, reached into the wastebasket and broke it between his fingers. State legislatures sometimes hear a request that the prison systems do away with the weekly cigarette ration. Such proposals are invariably defeated. In a few cases where they have passed, there have been fierce prison riots. Riots, Mr. Morrison. Imagine it. I, Morrison said, am not surprised. But consider the implications. When you put a man in prison, you take away any normal sex life. You take away his liquor, his politics, his freedom of movement. No riots, or few in comparison to the number of prisons. But when you take away his cigarettes, wham! Bam! He slammed his fist on the desk for emphasis. To be more like, bam! Bam! Pretty much like that, I guess. Books are so wonderful, they take us away to incredible places. Yeah, like, I can't tell you how many times I've read a book and I'll be thinking of, like, I let's see, what would be a good book to think about here? Let's take The Lord of the Rings, for example. I have watched the movies before, so whenever I see Gandalf, I'm gonna be like someone like Gandalf or, uh, um, like Gandalf, Frodo, um, Golem, to name a few characters. I'm gonna be thinking about those characters. Like how they look. That's gonna be in my head instantly because I've seen the movies, and so those characters are gonna be in my head. To be honest, I don't know if I would do a watch along stream of Lord of the Rings because, dude, I got my PlayStation on right now. Let's take a quick look at this. All right, let's take a quick look at the Lord of the Rings movies. Let's see how long those freaking things are. Because I know they are pretty freaking long. I think I'm on the wrong. I think I'm in the wrong fucking area. Trying to find a good one that can prove what I'm saying. About 6 hours, maybe more. Let me take a look. I can I can search it up. So I know it's somewhere here. I fucking love the Peanuts movie. Anyway. I'm sorry, I just seen that I just seen that I decided to say that because I do love that movie. One of my favorite movies of that year. And this year marks 10 years since that movie came out, too. So I might watch that later. Anyway, so we got The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. That movie is, let's just round it up to the nearest minute, 3 hours long for the standard version. And for the extended version, that shit is nearly 4 hours. So, and then you got the Two Towers. That is literally 4 hours long for the extended version. And then for the Return of the King, that is 4.5 fucking hours. You would literally have to fucking miniseries that. I would have to literally miniseries that shit. Like, I don't know if I would do. I'd probably do like an hour and then find a good stopping point after that hour has passed, just to make it fit. I guess I don't know what I would do, but I'll probably do a poll, like watch the full movie or split it up, and not read any book or watch another movie until we get that situated. We'll have to figure that out. Anyway, but yeah, that is just absolutely crazy to me. That is just crazy how those movies are that freaking long. But I can't really blame it because look at how. I mean, dude, we've got The Hobbit over here, and apparently, for a book that is literally that size. This is The Hobbit, by the way. But we got a book about that size, and and apparently there was enough content to make a trilogy on its own about the book, which I'm kind of surprised. But the more the merrier, I guess. Anyway. In the Hobbit's case, they just added a bunch of extra stuff. I wouldn't be too surprised about that, really. But I mean, when you're able to get, let's see, Lowell's miniseries, that's shite. I mean, I might as well. I mean, think about it. I probably would not be able to sit through 3, 4 hours, 4.5 hours of movie time. I bet you, even just because of how long that would be, I would probably fall asleep by the halfway mark, knowing my luck, with movies that long. Yeah. Alright, we're getting back into the book that I am reading, though. During World War One, when no one was on the German home front could get cigarettes, the sight of German aristocrats picking butts out of the gutter was a common one. During World War II, many American women turned to pipes when they were unable to obtain cigarettes. A fascinating problem for the true pragmatist, Mr. Morrison. Can we get to the treatment? Momentarily. Step over here, please. Donati had risen and was standing by the green curtains Morrison had noticed yesterday. Donati drew the curtains, discovering a rectangular window that looked into a bare room. No, not quite bare. There was a rabbit on the floor, eating pellets out of a dish. Pretty bunny, Morrison commented. Indeed. Watch him. Donati pressed a button by the windowsill. The rabbit stopped eating and began to hop about crazily. It seemed to leap higher each time its feet struck the floor. Its fur stood out spikily in all directions. Its eyes were wild. Stop it! You're electrocuting him! Donati released a button. Far from it. There's a very low yield charge on the floor. Watch the rabbit, Mr. Morrison. The rabbit was crouched about 10 feet away from the dish of pellets. His nose wriggled. All at once he hopped away into a corner. If the rabbit gets a jolt often enough while he's eating, Donati said, he makes the association very quickly. Eating causes pain. Therefore, he won't eat. A few more shots and the rabbit will starve to death in front of his food. It's called aversion training. What kind of experiment is that? That is literally animal cruelty to the max. Like, really? You're really gonna do that to a rabbit that's just trying to eat? And basically, you're starving it to death for some reason that I could not even try to fathom. Because it's cruel and unusual punishment on a rabbit. Even then, still animal cruelty. Why would you do that to a bunny rabbit? I don't get it. It's dumb. You're basically doing it for shits and giggles, I would say, at this point. Light dawned in Morrison's head. No thanks. He started for the door. Wait, please, Mr. Morrison. Morrison didn't pause. He grasped the doorknob and felt it slip solidly through his hand. Unlock this. Mr. Morrison, if you'll just sit down. Unlock this door, or I'll have the cops on you before you can say Marlboro Man. Sit down. Morrison looked at Donati. Wait, hold on a second. I slipped a line there. The voice was as cold as shaved ice. Morrison looked at Donati. His brown eyes were moldy and frightening. My God, he thought. I'm locked in here with a psycho. He licked his lips. He wanted a cigarette more than he had ever had in his life. Let me explain the treatment in more detail, Donati said. You don't understand, Morrison said with counterfeit patience. I don't want the treatment. I've decided against it. No, Mr. Morrison, you're the one who doesn't understand. You don't have any choice. When I told you the treatment had already begun, I was speaking the literal truth. I would have thought you'd tip to that by now. You're crazy, Morrison said wonderingly. No, only a pragmatist. Let me tell you all about the treatment. Sure, Morrison said. As long as you understand that as soon as I get out of here, I'm going to buy 5 packs of cigarettes and smoke them all on the way to the police station. He suddenly realized he was biting his thumbnail, sucking on it, and made himself stop. As you wish, but I think you'll change your mind when you see the whole picture. Morrison said nothing. He sat down again and folded his hands. For the first month of the treatment, our operatives will have you under constant supervision, Donati said. You'll be able to spot some of them. Not all. But they'll always be with you. Always. If they see you smoke a cigarette, I'm gonna call. And I suppose you bring me here and do the old rabbit trick, Morrison said. He tried to sound cold and sarcastic, but he suddenly felt horribly frightened. This was a nightmare. Oh no, Donati said. Your wife, that's the rabbit trick, not you. Morrison looked at him dumbly. Donati smiled. You get to watch. Well, it does say he said between you and Get, but do we really? But whatever. We're moving on from that. Thank you. Oh, sorry, messed up the thing there. Thank you for your take on books. Keep on keeping on, pal. Thank you, Von Beck, Forrest. Get his name right. But thank you, Von Beck. Yeah, I honestly just started reading last year. Actually, I think we're actually almost. I think it was actually near the end of near the start of the year, just shortly after the year started. When I started doing this, it may have been like in between the beginning and the middle of the year. So far, I would probably have to do a tier list for the books that I've read so far to figure out which ones I enjoyed the most so far. But yeah, we're gonna take a tea break. After Donati, damn that voice crack. After Donati left him out, Morrison walked for over 2 hours in a complete daze. It was another fine day, but he didn't notice. The monstrousness of Donati's smiling face blotted out all else. You see, he had said, a pragmatic problem demands pragmatic solutions. You must realize we have your best interests at heart. Quitters Incorporated, according to Donati, was a sort of foundation, a non-profit organization begun by the man in the wall portrait. The gentleman had been extremely successful in several family businesses, including slot machines, massage parlors, numbers, and a brisk, although clandestine, trade between New York and Turkey. Mort Three Fingers Minelli had been a heavy smoker, up in the 3 pack a day range. The paper he was holding in the picture was a doctor's diagnosis: lung cancer. Mort had died in 1970 after endowing Quitters Incorporated with family funds. We try to keep as close to breaking even as possible, Donati had said, but we're more interested in helping our fellow man. And of course, it's a great tax angle. The treatment was chillingly simple. The first offense, and Sidney would be brought to what Donati called the rabbit room. A second offense, and Morrison would get the dose. On a third offense, both of them would be brought in together. A fourth offense would show grave cooperation problems and would require sterner measures. An operative would be sent to Alvin's school to work the boy over. God damn. These people are not fucking around, I swear. Imagine, Donati said, smiling, how horrible it will be for the boy. He wouldn't understand it even if someone explained. He'll only know someone is hurting him because Daddy was bad. He'll be very frightened. You bastard, Morrison said helplessly. He felt close to tears. You, you dirty, filthy bastard. Don't misunderstand, Donati said. He was smiling sympathetically. I'm sure it won't happen. 40% of our clients never have to be disciplined at all, and only 10% have more than three falls from grace. Those are reassuring figures, aren't they? Donat Morrison didn't find them reassuring. He found them terrifying. Of course, if you transgress a fifth time, what do you mean? Donati beamed. The room for you and your wife, a second beating for your son, and a beating for your wife. Morrison, driven beyond the point of rational consideration, lunged over the desk at Donati. Donati moved with amazing speed for a man who had apparently been completely relaxed. He shoved the chair backward and drove both of his feet over the desk and into Morrison's belly. Gagging and coughing, Morrison staggered backward. Sit down, Mr. Morrison, Donati said benignly. Let's talk this over like rational men. When he could get his breath, Morrison did as he was told. Nightmares had to end sometimes. Sometimes, didn't they? God, I love the team, man. I love it. Quitters Incorporated, Donati had explained further, operated on a 10-step punishment scale. Steps 6, 7, and 8 consisted of further trips to the rabbit room, an increased voltage, and more serious beatings. The ninth step would be the breaking of his son's arms. And God damn, they just going after people for just because of this small little thing, jeez. And the 10th? Morrison asked, his mouth dry. Donati shook his head sadly. Then we give up, Mr. Morrison. You become part of the unregenerate 2%. You really give up? You really give up? In a manner of speaking. He opened one of the desk drawers and laid his silenced 45 on the desk. He smiled into Morrison's eyes. But even the unregenerate 2% never smoke again. We guarantee it. I don't think you need to guess what that means. I mean, it's very well obvious, but I don't think you have to guess what that means. The Friday night movie was Bullet, one of Cindy's favorites, but after an hour of Morrison's mutterings and fidgetings, her concentration was broken. And quick show of hands, just because they mentioned this. How many people have seen that movie, Bullet? And if you have seen it, what did you think of it? Random question of the stream, that one. What's the matter with you? She asked during station identification. Nothing. Everything, he growled. I'm giving up smoking. She laughed. Since when? 5 minutes ago? Since 3 o'clock this afternoon. You really haven't had a cigarette since then? No, he said, and began to gnaw his thumbnail. It was ragged, down to the quick. That's wonderful! What even made you decide to quit? You, he said, and Alvin. But her eyes widened, and when the movie came back on, she didn't notice. Dick rarely mentioned their retarded son. She came over, looked at the empty ashtray by his right hand, and then into his eyes. Are you really trying to quit, Dick? Really? And if I go to the cops, he added mentally, the local goon squad will be around to rearrange your face, Cindy. I'm glad. Even if you don't make it, we both thank you for the thought, Dick. Oh, I think I'll make it, he said, thinking of the muddy, homicidal look that had come into Donati's eyes when he kicked him in the stomach. Excuse me. Is this the smoking short story? That's a lot of. Okay, let's stop here for a second here. Let's Infamous Tuesday, and I still have yet to see it. Alright. Is this the smoking short story? Quitters Incorporated, yes. And that's a lot of books, I'm jealous. It's going to take me a while to get through these books, I'll tell you that much. I partly am doing this because I have a niece and nephew that I know a number of these books they will not be reading for a while, particularly books by this guy right here. But I'll wait till they're in high school before I let them read them, because I don't think they were in middle school when I was in middle school. I don't think they had Stephen King books there, but I know they did in high school. So I'd probably wait till they're in the high school years before I let them read the Stephen King books. Uh, but yeah, part of the reason why I'm reading these books is because I want to see how many books I would think would be okay for them to read at this point in time, and that's why I'm reading them like the MPAA because that's what we have. We have the MPAA, or if like the MPAA, G, PG, PG-13, R, and even NC-17. And honestly, out of all the books that I have, there's probably at least one book that I have that I would definitely give an NC-17 rating. So I would probably do something before I let that be. I'll probably either do it to where it'd be like one of those unlisted videos, but you could watch it if I were to provide a link. But it would only be for those that are over the age of 18, because I am not going to subject kids at all in any way, shape, or form to at least one of these books that I know are NC-17. That's why I'm also reading them off screen, so that way I know which would be suitable for kids, which would be suitable for teenagers, which one is suitable for adults, but still teenagers could also read if they wanted to, and things that are just adults only, and no kid should ever be reading it at all. Yeah, let me. Clockwork Orange. Um, I have read Clockwork Orange, but it has been so long since I've read that book, which I know was made into a film by Stanley Kubrick. Um, but it's been so long that I can't really say anything about it. I probably would buy a copy of it, but right now, as it stands, I have not yet. Uh, I haven't read that book in years, high school years for sure. He slept badly that night, dozing in and out of sleep. Around 3 o'clock, he woke up completely. His craving for a cigarette was like a low-grade fever. He went downstairs into his study. The room was in the middle of the house. No windows. He slid open the top drawer of his desk and looked in, fascinated by the cigarette box. He looked around and licked his lips. Constant supervision during the first month, Donati had said. 18 hours a day during the next two, but he would never know which 18. During the fourth month, the month when most clients backslid, the service would return to 24 hours a day, then 12 hours of broken surveillance each day for the rest of the year. After that, random surveillance for the rest of the client's life. for the rest of his life. We may honor you every other month, Donati said, or every other day, or constantly for 1 week, 2 years from now. The point is, you won't know. If you smoke, you'll be gambling with loaded dice. Are they watching? Are they picking up my wife or sending a man after my son right now? Beautiful, isn't it? And if you do sip a smoke, it'll taste awful. It'll taste like your son's blood. But they couldn't be watching now in the dead of night, in his own study. The house was grave quiet. He looked at the cigarettes in the box for almost 2 minutes, unable to tear his gaze away. Then he went to the study door, peered out into the empty hall, and went back to look at the cigarettes some more. A horrible picture came. His life stretching before him, and not a cigarette to be found. How in the name of God was he ever going to be able to make another tough presentation to a weary client without that cigarette burning nonchalantly between his fingers as he approached the charts and layouts? How would he be able to endure Cindy's endless garden shows without a cigarette? How could he even get up in the morning and face the day without a cigarette to smoke as he drank his coffee and read the paper? He cursed himself for getting into this. He cursed Donati, and most of all, he cursed Jimmy McCann. How could he have done it? The son of a bitch had known. His hands trembled in their desire to get hold of Jimmy Judas McCann. Suddenly, he glanced around the study again. He reached into the drawer and brought out a cigarette. He caressed it, fondled it. What was that old slogan? So round, so firm, so fully packed. Truer words had never been spoken. He put the cigarette in his mouth and then paused, cocking his head. Has there been the slightest noise in the closet? A faint shifting? Surely not, but another mental image. That rabbit hopping crazily in the grip of electricity. The thought of Cindy in that room. He listened desperately and heard nothing. He told himself that all he had to do was go to the closet door and yank it open, but he was too afraid of what he might find. He went back to bed but didn't sleep for a long time. Technically, they never said he couldn't put a cigarette in his mouth. They just said he couldn't smoke the cigarette. So in a way, he wouldn't really be breaking the rules if we're being technical about it. It's kind of like it's kind of like that one scene in Law and Order, which for the first time in forever they have finally got it to where we got all 20 of the original Law and Order, all 20 seasons of that, not including the few seasons that have come out after they rebooted the series for season 21. Um, and there's a scene where in the first season, uh, Sergeant Greavy, I think his name was, he has a cigar in his mouth, but he walks into a, I think he's walking in the hospital or something, and somebody is understandably telling him, "Hey, you can't smoke here," and he's like, "It's not lit," and so they're just like, "Okay," like as if nothing ever happened. That's what made me think of what I'm saying now. He technically could put it in his mouth, but he just cannot light the cigarette up without without getting into deep trouble. I swear to God, I'm saying it like that one movie. You know the one. It's a mad world. Yeah, that one. I'm saying it like that. In spite of how lousy he felt in the morning, breakfast tasted good. After a moment's hesitation, he followed his customary bowl of cornflakes with scrambled eggs. He was grumpily washing out the pan when Cindy came downstairs in a robe. Richard Morrison! You haven't eaten an egg for breakfast since Hector was a pup. Morrison grunted. He considered since Hector was a pup to be one of Cindy's stupidest sayings, on a par with I should smile and kiss a pig. Have you smoked yet? She asked, pouring orange juice. No. You'll be back on them by noon, she proclaimed airily. Lot of goddamn help you are, he rasped, rounding on her. You and anyone else who doesn't smoke, you all think... never mind. He expected her to be angry, but she was looking at him with something like wonder. You're really serious, she said. You really are. You bet I am. You'll never know how serious I hope. Poor baby, she said, going to him. You look like death warmed over, but I'm very proud. Morrison held her tightly. Is this something you do regularly? I like audiobooks, but this is cooler. I didn't do it for the last, for October and December because I was doing a thing where I was rating specific movies for those months. For October, it was the horror movies, and for December, it was Christmas movies, which I am surprised. I got pretty far with the Christmas stuff. I still missed out on a few of the movies, but I did a hell of a lot better than I did with the horror stuff. So that's why I'm gonna have to look through all the movies that I have done, and I'll probably buy some more, or watch some more, depending on what people think I should watch based on what is currently on a streaming service. But yeah, either way, that's awesome. But yeah, I do this as regularly as I can. There are going to be times where I will try to do this and I'll probably be so tired that I'll fall asleep in the middle of the stream, which has happened before. So I end the streams and then I take those down because I want to have a stream where I complete what I was going to do. In this case, reading two short stories of this book and then doing two more short stories for each part until we're finally done with the book. Um, and what I'm going to do is I'll probably have it to where alongside with The Hobbit, I'll probably do two chapters of that because the chapters in that book are not terribly long, but some are decently long enough to where I might have to do just two chapters per part, just as well as I'm doing two stories for each part of this one. Uh, but yeah. Yeah. I guess you could say it's almost like it's like if a parent reads their kid a bedtime story. In my case, I'm just reading a story for whoever wants to listen to it, even if it's not suitable for certain people. Scenes from the life of Richard Morrison, October to November. Morrison and a crony from Larkin Studios at Jack Dempsey's bar. Corny offers a cigarette. Morrison grips his glass a little more tightly and says, I'm quitting. Crony laughs and says, I'll give you a week. Morrison, waiting for the morning train, looking over the top of the Times at a young man in a blue suit. He sees the young man almost every morning now, and sometimes at other places. At Ondi's, where he is meeting a client. Looking at 45s in Sam Goody's, where Morrison is looking for a Sam Cooke album. Once in a foursome behind Morrison's group at the local golf course. Morrison getting drunk at a party, wanting a cigarette, but not quite drunk enough to take one. Morrison visiting his son, bringing him a large ball that squeaked when you squeezed it. His son's slobbering, delighted kiss. Somehow not as repulsive as before. Hugging his son tightly, realizing what Donati and his colleagues had so cynically realized before him. Love is the most precious drug of all, a pernicious drug of all. Let the romantics debate its existence. Pragmatists accept it and use it. Morrison losing the physical compulsion to smoke little by little, but never quite losing the psychological craving or the need to have something in his mouth. Cough drops, lifesavers, a toothpick, poor substitutes, all of them. I don't know. Lifesavers and Jolly Ranchers are pretty good. I particularly preferred the Jolly Ranchers, the hard candy Jolly Ranchers, because for the life of me, they always seem to do pretty good as the hard candy. I never really liked the um. It, oh, you read on your. I'm gonna have. You know what? I'll check you out later. I will check your channel out later because I'm curious to see what books you've read. As well. Uh, pancakes. Yeah. Good on you for reading on your channel. Yeah, this slowly has become a thing that I've wanted to do. Like, at first, I'll be honest, when I first did this, I was thinking, like, there's no way people are going to want to come to see this. There is no way people are going to take their time out of their day to listen to me read a book. I would be surprised. I wasn't even going to be surprised when I started doing this. When people were thinking I was just trying to do this for cheap views or whatever, which I'm not. I've enjoyed reading books ever since I was in high school. So, yeah, like my very first, like the book that I have enjoyed reading the most, that I would love to read, which I is in this pile of books, um, is the book Tears of a Tiger by Sharon M. Dropper. To this day, it is as good as a number of the books that I've read so far have been. That book is still to this day one of my favorite books because it delves into something that I feel like teenagers of all ages should read. That's why I would probably give it a PG-13 rating right off the bat. Uh, Especially for a particular scene, but I'm not going to spoil it in case anybody wants to read it for themselves or whatnot. But yeah, if you haven't read it before, and I'm saying this in a general sense for everybody, if you love reading books and you have not read that book before, recommended. The last Stephen King book I read was Spencer. I hate to be. I'm going to be the bearer of bad news then because I actually have a copy of that book. Yes, I do. I have this book. I actually just bought a Stephen King book not too long ago, titled The Dark Half. I just bought that one recently. I also have 1922, The Outsider, Pet Cemetery, like I said, Carrie, um, the Green Mile, The Long Walk, um, Lizzie's Story, and that's all I can think of at the top of my head. That's all the Stephen King books that I probably have, but I can think of at the top of my head. And that's like 14 books in themselves, and I'm still one. Oh, and if I didn't say it, Carrie, uh, which I know is his first novel, and I know the movie, and I mean the 1976 movie, and oh my god. Oh, dude, I would love. I'm gonna read that book and then I'm gonna watch the movie, and I'm gonna probably enjoy it, knowing my luck, because I have heard of the Carrie movie, but I have not seen it all the way through. So still holds up both book and movie. Yeah, I know that. Well, there's technically, I think there was like three movies of it. You had the 1976 movie that most people remember very well. Um, you have the 2004 TV movie, I think it was, that not very many people probably know about, but you probably do if you watched Dead Meat, which I did. Um, and the 2013 remake, which I don't know if I would. I can't really say anything about it because, again, I never watched any of the Carrie movies. And I'm not watching The Rage Carrie 2. I'm not watching that movie. Because I think they did it. It was one of those movies that. It was one of those sequels that shouldn't have been made, but were made because it's a title of of a popular property that can carry, and so they did it for the money or whatever, and it backfired on them big time. And that's why we never got a Carrie 3. I haven't read all those books. I'm just listing all the books that I have. That's what I was saying. I have read, um, I think out of all the books, I have read The Green Mile. Because at the time when I was reading, it was shortly after I watched the 1999 movie version of it. And so after watching the movie, I was like, well, it was. In honesty, I never knew that book was written. When I watched the movie, I never knew that book was written by that the book was written by Stephen King. It just said based on the novel or like whatever, and I was like, and when I found out it was written by Stephen King, I'm like, this the guy who is known for scary, fucked up moments. He is the one that wrote this book, and And when I was looking at the book, like in the book section in my school library, they had it under horror, and I'm like, I don't think Green Mile is a horror book. I think of it more like a fantasy drama book, if I'm being honest. Because I don't really see anything. Well, I mean, uh, a certain character's death is horrifying, but I wouldn't really call the book itself a horror book. But that's just my take on that. Your classes are on crooked. I think this will explain it to you why I can't wear them straight. Uh, Shawshank Redemption was one I couldn't believe he wrote either. Yeah, it's so weird how he is such a good writer that he could write two books that are not even horror adjacent, but yet he could still do a damn good job writing them. He's like the Coen brothers. Like he could write any kind of story and he would be able to tell it so well that it's not even funny. He's like the Coen brothers when you think about it. He's the Coen brothers of books. If you don't know who the Coen brothers are, I just read a top 10 list of like the top rated the the best characters of the top 10 rated, highest rated Coen Brothers movies based on IMDb by Screen Rant. And so you might recognize some of them. Did you know one of the Coen Brothers edited the original Evil Dead? Hmm. No, I didn't. I never knew that. Let's see here. Stephen King is one of the authors I've been told so much about, but have yet to read. Well, um, well, let's put it to you this way: he is a descriptive, and I'm also going to say this for this other comment that just came in. I know Righty is very versatile in his storytelling. He is such a very descriptive person that you could just imagine everything that's going on in the story in your head like that. Would alternate writing scripts on every other day. I think some days they'd work on Fargo, then the next day uh they they'd work on The Big Lebowski. Probably. I mean, I don't know the life of Stephen King, but he probably did. He probably has. But I'm not gonna act like I know because I don't. You know, better to think than to act like you know about something that you don't really know. Anyway, let's see, just to keep his mind fresh. He probably does. He probably does, maybe. I read it in sixth grade. I grew up in New England, so Stephen King was sort of New England. It's kind of New England lore. Oh, I actually happen to have. Oh, that's right. I actually forgot a book. It. I forgot a book, and that was It. And ironically enough, I have a bookmark of the Pennywise from the 2017 version. And yes, I will probably watch both parts one, chapter 1 and 2 of the 2017 and 2019 It movies. And I've heard so much by so many people of how terrifying those movies are. And I say, good. I like to be terrified in horror books, in horror movies. That's the whole point. You're supposed to be scared of them. You're supposed to have scary moments in horror movies. That's the whole point. Supposed to be scared in certain point. Like you're supposed to be. There's supposed to be scary moments in a horror movie. Uh, and that's the whole point. And then when you leave the movie theater, you can talk about things like, "Wow, did you see? Oh my God, I can't believe that happened. That scared the shit out of me." Oh, Misery. Oh, you want to know something? Fun fact. I remember some years ago when my dad and I, one of the last few times, we went to a local pizza shop that's not too far from my house. My dad and I went, it's like a pizza place, grocery store kind of thing, combination there. But one night, on one of the last few times we went there, I can't remember when it was, I bought a two movie uh, disc set, or a two movie set. And I think it was like side A and side B, those kind of things that they had at the time. This this two movie set had Misery and Silence of the Lambs. And I watched both movies. I don't think I watched them both on the same night, but I watched one night and then the second one the night after that. And I I was like, what the hell am I watching? With Misery. I mean, I already knew from Misery because when I was a kid, like in my I was like maybe 8, 9, 10 years old. I would watch this special. You probably heard about it, titled oh God, that'd be a hell of a thing to watch. Hannibal Lecter versus Eddie Wilkes. Oh my God, who would win in that one? When you think about it, that's like a '90s cable weekend. Yeah, it does sound like it, especially when they both came out around within probably they probably both came out in one calendar year of each other. Now that I think about it, someone can look it up though. But yeah, I with but yeah, I knew of Misery because hell, I knew of both of them because when I was like 8, 9, 10 years old, I I was watching. I don't know if you guys heard of this, but in 2004, Bravo had the 100 scariest movie moments, and that's how I found out about both those movies. With Misery, it was because of the infamous scene where she takes this thing in between this guy's feet and just just takes a fucking sledgehammer, just breaks these just does this ankle breaking shit. Yeah, hobbling. Yeah, the hobbling scene where she does that to him. I was like, oh my God. Like, I never knew the context behind why she was doing what she was doing. Oh, I know it is. I know it is. But we're not going to talk about that yet. We're not talking about that one yet. No, we're not. No, not yet. Because I have the book and I'm going to read it at some point. But yeah. Yeah, the book is much more gruesome. As a matter of fact, it's a lot more bloody. Yes. Think about that for a second. But with the Silence of the Lambs, I knew about that because the scene that they showed for that movie was the scene where Hannibal Lecter pretty much escapes from his jail cell, the cell that holding cell that he was in, and how he does it is just like. It was like I was like I would hate to be all the cops that were killed off, all the people that were killed during his escape. I would hate to be any of them because that shit had to have been painful. All that. Yeah. But but yeah, that was a good time to be alive, to watch two critically acclaimed horror movies, and two movies that I believe are actually preserved in the National Film Registry of the Library of Congress, which shows how historic those movies are. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and finish the book. I literally got both Oscar winners. Oh yeah. Silence of the Lambs happened to be the first movie since One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest to win all the major Academy Award nominees. Like it was the first movie since the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest to do that. Yeah, the Big Five, I think. Yep. Yes, I know about that because again, I watch that movie. I watch that special every October, uh, and so I always know about that because Eli Roth, the director of movies such as Cabin Fever, the Hostel movies, the Green Inferno, I think the title of it is, and He's probably been executive producer for. I think he was executive producer for Thanksgiving. Uh, And I swear to God, Eli Roth is like the movie Stephen King because he is very, very much not willing to let people escape the torment of graphic, bloody violence. This man. I mean, Stephen King's not that bad, but he has his moments too. But it doesn't always happen. Alright, alright. We're gonna have to continue with this book. We only got like 4 pages left. Like literally just these 4 pages. Page flips left. And then we'll be done for the night. And finally, Morrison hung up in a colossal traffic jam in the Midtown Tunnel. Darkness. Horns blaring. Air stinking. Traffic hopelessly snarled. And suddenly, thumbing open the glove compartment and seeing the half-open pack of cigarettes in there, he looked at them for a moment, then snatched one and lit it with the dashboard lighter. If anything happens, it's Cindy's fault, he told himself defiantly. I told her to get rid of all the damn cigarettes. So basically, he just threw his wife under the bus. Let's just hope he doesn't get caught. Could we call him an asshole for that? Shame this man, even? The first drag made him cough smoke out furiously. The second made his eyes water. The third made him feel lightheaded and swoony. It tastes awful, he thought. And on the heels of that, my God, what am I doing? Horns blatted impatiently behind him. Ahead, the traffic had begun to move again. He stubbed the cigarette out in the ashtray, opened both front windows, opened the vents, and then fanned the air helplessly, like a kid who had just flushed his first butt down the john. He joined the traffic flow jerkily and drove home. Uh-oh. I've just read the scene that I'm on, and when you hear me say "uh-oh" after what I just read, you know what's probably about to happen. Cindy? He called. I'm home. No answer. Cindy? Where are you, hun? The phone rang and he pounced on it. Hello? Cindy? Hello, Mr. Morrison, Donati said. He sounded pleasantly brisk and businesslike. It seems we have a small business matter to attend to. Would 5 o'clock be convenient? Have you got my wife? Yes, indeed. Donati chuckled indulgently. Look, let her go, Morrison babbled. It won't happen again. It was a slip. Just a slip, that's all. I only had 3 drags, and for God's sakes, it didn't even taste good. That's a shame. I'll count on you for 5 then, shall I? Please, Morrison said, close to tears. Please. He was speaking to a dead line. At 5 p.m., the reception room was empty except for the secretary, who gave him a twinkly smile that ignored Morrison's pallor and disheveled appearance. Mr. Donati? She said in the intercom. Mr. Morrison to see you. She nodded to Morrison. Go right in. Donati was waiting outside the unmarked room, with a man who was wearing a smile sweatshirt and carrying a .38. He was built like an ape. Listen, Morrison said to Donati. We can work something out, can't we? I'll pay you. Shut up, the man in the smile sweatshirt said. It's good to see you, Donati said. Sorry it has to be under such adverse circumstances. Will you come with me? We'll make this as brief as possible. I can assure you your wife won't be hurt. This time. Morrison tensed himself to leap at Donati. Come, Donati said, looking annoyed. If you do that, Junk here is gonna pistol whip you, and your wife is still gonna get it. Now where's the percentage in that? I hope you rot in hell, he told Donati. Donati sighed. If I had a nickel for every time someone expressed a similar sentiment, I could retire. Let it be a lesson to you, Mr. Morrison. When a romantic tries to do a good thing and fails, they give him a medal. When a pragmatist succeeds, they wish him in hell. Shall we go? Junk motioned with the pistol. Morrison preceded them into the room. He felt numb. The small green curtain had been pulled. Junk prodded him with the gun. This is what being a witness at the gas chamber must have been like, he thought. He looked in. Cindy was there, looking around bewilderedly. Cindy! Morrison called miserably. Cindy, She can't hear or see you, Donati said. One-way glass. Well, let's get this over with. It really was a very small slip. I believe 30 seconds should be enough. Junk? Junk pressed the button with one hand and kept the pistol jammed firmly into Morrison's back with the other. It was the longest 30 seconds of his life. When it was over, Donati put a hand on Morrison's shoulder and said, Are you going to throw up? No, Morrison said weakly. His forehead was against the glass. His legs were jelly. I don't think so. He turned around and saw that Junk was gone. Come with me, Donati said. Where? Morrison asked apathetically. I think you have a few things to explain, don't you? How can I face her? How can I tell her that I think you're going to be surprised, Donati said. The room was empty except for a sofa. Cindy was on it, sobbing helplessly. "Cindy?" he said gently. She looked up, her eyes magnified by tears. "Dick?" she whispered. "Dick? Oh, oh God." He held her tightly. "Two men," she said against his chest, "in the house, and at first I thought they were burglars, and then I thought they were going to rape me, and then they took me someplace with a blindfold over my eyes, and it was horrible." "Shh," he said. "Shh." "But why?" she asked, looking up at him. "Why would they?" "Because of me," he said. "I have to tell you a story. Cindy." When he had finished, he was silent a moment and then said, "I suppose you hate me. I wouldn't blame you." He was looking at the floor, and she took his face in both hands and turned it to hers. "No," she said, "I don't hate you." He looked at her in mute surprise. "It was worth it," she said. "God bless these people. They let you out of prison." "Do you mean that?" "Yes," she said, and kissed him. "Can we go home now? I feel much better. Ever so much." The phone rang one evening a week later, and when Morrison recognized Donati's voice, he said, "Your boys have got it wrong. I haven't even been near a cigarette." "We know that. We have a final matter to talk over. Could you stop by tomorrow afternoon?" "Is it?" No, nothing serious. Bookkeeping, really. By the way, congratulations on your promotion." "How did you know about that?" "We're keeping tabs," Donati said noncommittally, and hung up. Hmm. When they entered the small room, Donati said, "Don't look so nervous. No one's going to bite you. Step over here, please." Morrison saw an ordinary bathroom scale. "Listen, I paid a little weight, but yes, 73% of our clients do. Step up, please." Morrison did and tipped the scales at 174. "Okay, fine. You can step off. How tall are you, Mr. Morrison?" 5'11". "Okay, let's see." He pulled a small card laminated in plastic from his breast pocket. "Well, that's not too bad. I'm going to write you a prescription for some highly illegal diet pills. Use them sparingly and according to directions. And I'm going to set your maximum weight at, let's see." He consulted the card again. 182. How does that sound? "And since this is December 1st, I'll expect you the first of every month for a weigh-in. No problem if you can't make it, as long as you call in advance." "And what happens if I go over 182? Donati smiled. "We'll send someone out to your house to cut off your wife's little finger," he said. "You can leave through this door, Mr. Morrison. Have a nice day." 8 months later, Morrison runs into the crony from the Larkin studios at Dempsey's bar. Morrison is down to what Cindy proudly calls his fighting weight, 167. He works out 3 times a week It looks as thin as a whipcord. The pony from Martin, by comparison, looks like something the cat dragged in. Crony. Lord, how'd you ever stop? I'm locked into this damn habit tighter than Tilly. The crony stubs a cigarette out with a real revulsion and drains his scotch. Morrison looks at him speculatively and then takes a small white business card out of his wallet. He puts it on the bar between them. You know, he says, these guys changed my life. "12 months later, Morrison receives a bill in the mail. The bill says, Quitters Incorporated, 237 East 46th Street, New York, New York, 10017. One treatment, $2,500. Counselor, Victor Donati, $2,500. Electricity, 50 cents. Total, please pay this amount, $5,000, 50 cents. These sons of a bitches! He explodes. They charge me for the electricity they used to just pay it, she says, and kisses him. 20 months later, quite by accident, Morrison and his wife meet the Jimmy McCanns at the Helen Hayes Theater. Introductions are made all around. Jimmy looks as good, if not better, than he did on that day in the airport terminal so long ago. Morrison has never met his wife. She is pretty in the radiant way plain girls sometimes have when they are very, very happy. She offers her hand and Morrison shakes it. There is something odd about her grip, and halfway through the second act, he realizes what it was. The little finger on her right hand is missing. And that's the end of Quitters Inc. And that is also the end of this book reading stream. Next time on Night Shift, I will be reading the stories I Know What You Need. That is going to be a long story, I can tell you that much. Long short story. And if... Let's see how long this book is. Hell, that's a longer book than itself. That's probably about nearly twice as much. But we'll see what we can do. You read the Necronomicon in that one. Okay. If you're talking about the short story the title I just read, don't spoil it, please. But let's see. We got I Know What You Need and Children of the Corn. So those will be the two stories that I read on the next part of Night Shift. So yeah. But on the next reading stream itself, I'll be reading chapters 2 and 3 of The Hobbit. But that's for then. This is now. And with that said, I want to thank you guys so much for watching this reading stream. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys enjoyed the reading stream, and if you did, you know what to do. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and until next time, ladies and gentlemen, this is Forrest Walpole signing off. Also, Happy New Year. It's technically January 2nd, but still Happy New Year.